Now everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat. I want to talk about GameStop. Ticker symbol GME. Before I talk about it, I just want to say I don't have a stake in it. I don't know if I ever will. I'm more coming from a pure technical analysis standpoint. I don't know enough about the fundamentals of GME to be able to comment on it. I don't really necessarily believe in it one way or another, whether or not this really truly a movement or not. I actually think that a lot of whales are really manipulating the prices. So I don't know in terms of where we're coming from. Now, from a pure academic, from a pure technical analysis type view, this is a bullish chart. And I'm going to explain to you as to why. And I do want to, even though I'm a chartist, I do want to put my money in things that I have more of an affiliation with, which is Bitcoin, which is the U.S. economy, and I do think that global liquidity is going to increase. I think that Russell 2000 is going to do very well. So if all of those things are going to do very well, it also makes logical sense for something that has pumped like crazy, has a lot of these kind of degen liquidity going into it. I do think that GameStop is going to be one of those stocks that probably do very well in an environment where there is irrational exuberance, which I think might be coming. I think things would get a little bit heated up here in a little bit. So I'll kind of explain anyway. Just get into the nitty gritty of the technicals part of it. I do want to start out by saying that this is overall a bullish chart because it just formed a higher high and it just formed a higher low, right? Ever since the start of the GameStop stock is finally form a higher high here and it form a higher low compared to here and here. There's no dispute of that. Now, you can argue that this is maybe a little bit of a lower high, or you can say that this is a little bit of a change in trend character over here too, because this is also technically a higher high here compared to these highs over here, and this is also a higher low here compared to that, right? So there's a lot of these kind of characters change that tells me that you don't even need any indicators. That is really telling me that I think something is very, very interesting is being built up here. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about market symmetry here, and I do want to talk a little bit about how I'm looking at this. Now, first of all, I'm going to draw again square all the way from the bottom over here around April 2020, and I'm going to make the Gann square at a particular level where it's all standardized rather than being subject to the bias. The way I do it is I'm going to make it the multiple of 45, which is going to be 180 for the duration, and up here I'm just going to use a standard number like a number 10, right? And if you just do that, you can already see some very beautiful market structure here. Like, I'm not biasing, or anything. These are numbers that you're supposed to put for a Gann chart, and it just magically pops up. You can see a lot of beautiful market symmetry. It basically went from the bottom, pushed through arcs number 1, 2, 3, and 4, went to the fourth arc, got rejected here, and it's just been stuck in a range between these two arcs here for about 4 years now. And when it got to the bottom over here, it finally decided it wanted to push through and test the angle, as well as push through and test the bottom of the arc above here again, right? Now, you could say that, hey, we pushed through this horizontal zone over here. Does it mean that price would have to come back down and test the horizontal line over here? It might, right? And that if things end up going to crap, which I don't suspect it will, but if it does, I think the risk level is going to be around like 15.5. That's going to be like the absolute lowest that it could go, I think, for the foreseeable future. I mean, like next thing you know, like for maybe, I don't know about like 2026, 2027, 2028, I can't look that far, but looking at over the next year or so, I think that the horizontal zone over here is probably going to be as low as it goes if it ends up getting there. Now, I have a lot of reason to think that why it would not get there. The part of the reason as to why I think it might not get there is because if you look at the weekly Ichimoku cloud, it basically is finding support here almost perfectly at the top of the Ichimoku cloud. After high volume breakout, it's basically just been backtesting the cloud here for quite some time, right? So the cloud's holding. There's no guarantee it's going to come back down to like 15.5. The other reason too, if you look at a monthly here, if you look at the 20-month moving average, which is a part of Bollinger Band here on the monthly chart, you can see that it's really been very, very nicely being supported by a flattening to a slightly rising 20-month moving average. Now, whenever I see price flipping the 20-month moving average from resistance into support, that's when I get really bullish on any kind of asset. And that's just across the board. I don't care if you're talking about Bitcoin, you're talking about Enphase, you're talking about Tesla, you're talking about like the S&P 500. I don't care. If it's able to flip a negative sloping 20-month moving average, turn it flat and turn it positively sloping, and if you're able to flip it from resistance to support, that's generally a pretty bullish indication that things are probably going to end up being positive, usually around at least the next 12 months or so. So because of these findings, I'm incredibly bullish on this chart, and I just cannot be that bearish on it at this point. Now, on the lower time frame is also starting to kind of reclaiming a lot of these kinds of support zone here. For example, it is starting to reclaim the bull market support band. Initially kind of broke underneath of a little bit, but right now it's trying to get back inside the bull market support band over here, right? So that's a pretty, a relatively bullish thing. The other thing it's doing right now is even on the weekly Ichimoku, initially the blue line, the Tenkan, was serving as a little bit of a resistance here, right? You can see the price had a hard time pushing up, but right now we've more or less kind of flipped this resistance line over here from resistance here potentially to support. This week close above the Tenkan, right? So there are a lot of these different things that are really telling me that, hey, maybe things are kind of turning around here. Just looking at the daily chart, you do have a little bit of a resistance here on the daily chart, Ichimoku. But if you also look at the moving averages, there are a lot of things that are turning a little bit more positive. One is the 20-day moving average is now again serve as support. And the other thing is that the 50 here, which is blue, has also been kind of going into support here as well. You're about to have like a little bit of a daily bullish cross where 20 might cross back about 50. And the 100 has just been rising. Right now it's a little bit underneath of that, but because it's rising, it probably won't serve as very strong resistance at all. Whenever price decide to go through, it probably just takes a little bit of volume and just kind of push things through, right? Just look at a volume profile here. This whole, downtrend from around the mid-20s all the way down to like the high teens here was with earnings. And with earnings, it had left a big giant gap over here, which is being filled right now. Like right now, the gap fills generally can serve a little bit as a resistance. That's exactly what it's doing, right? It did have very nice like hammered bottom candle over here. It did have some pretty decent volume here. But look at this volume over here on September 20th. Like this volume here trumps everything else. And you have this bullish engulfing candle that engulfed like the last 7 candles over here. So all it takes is just a little bit more volume, kind of push things about. Now even this giant like volume here on the lower time frame, if you zoom out, like it's like nothing compared to this big giant move that we just make back in May, right? Like all this volume over here is crazy. The volume in June was also crazy. Right now there's just been going sideways on no volume. And whenever you have some increase in volume, it tends to be up, right? So that is a little bit more suspicious in terms of making you think that, hey, maybe something is happening here. The other thing too, if you just go back to the monthly on higher time frame, the way that things generally bottom in terms of candle formation, you can have this tweezer bottom over here, which is generally a pretty decent bottom. Like whenever you see these tweezers, it's basically telling you that, hey, there's a lot of demand underneath. It looks like the next move is probably going to be up. And we just had a very nice tweezer here for the month of August and September going into October. So I think October probably going to be pretty bullish month for GME. Again, no guarantees, right? There's never any guarantees with any of these technical analysis. I'm purely going off on like more just like an academic way to kind of take a look at this to analyze it. I do not have a stake in GME, right? But it's looking pretty bullish. I'm going to pull up my GAN here. If you're asking me how far I think this cycle would end up going, if this is a beginning part of the cycle, which I think it is. If you ask me how far the cycle is going to go, I'm going to tell you, I don't know, but I'm going to show you a few things here. First of all, I do think that most likely this cycle, I'm going to get rid of Ichimoku here first. I think that this cycle most likely will end up breaking through this arc. Now, could the cycle end up just making a little bit of like a double top like here compared to here, and that cycle just ends around 70s? Possible, especially it has to push through like the 50s and the 60 up here before you get up to there, and maybe a lot of energy might end up getting exhausted to try and break through the arc here, and try and break through the monthly Ichimoku cloud here and the Tenkan Nikijin over here, right? So you might end up exhausting a lot of energy and might end up just ending a cycle here around the 70s. It's entirely possible. Or it could go up to the next arc up here, right? Which is going to be around 180s to 200s. Or it can end up going up top to this horizontal zone right here, which is around like 370. Do I think this has to do that? No. But I think that it's possible for it to do that. Right now, the market cap for GME is around $10 billion. It's a little bit, of a, like a medium-sized market cap. But all it takes is just like people disbelieve in some short squeeze, and it can just make some pretty crazy moves. Just look at how all it takes just a little bit of volume over here for price to move from like $10 all the way up to like 60, right? All it takes is a little bit of volume. I'm not even talking about this volume over here. I'm talking about just a little bit of volume over here, and it moved from $10 to $60 in just a month. So I do anticipate that as the global liquidity continues to rise, there's going to be some money that's going to come in and try to play this. Again, I'm not in it. I don't want to give you an impression that I'm like trying to pump it or anything. I'm just purely based on like an academic kind of thing, really. If you're looking at the cycle high over here and you do a Fibonacci level to the cycle low over here, and you try to look for some of the higher targets, I can do a Fibonacci without a log scale here. I can do a Fibonacci here on a linear scale. You can see that there's a lot of confluence up here around the horizontal line up here, around 400, like 360, 400, somewhere up here. I do think that there's a possibility that the cycle hits up there. And that could be a pretty significant gain, right? Because price right now is like 22 bucks. That's like more than 10x, and that's probably even maybe just even a little bit of a wick, and people are going to get so euphoric, they're going to enter it. Anyway, all of this stuff is just speculation, but I do see something happening here with GME that I just want to share. And I actually don't think it's that crazy to speculate these possibilities. The reason why I say that is, again, from another technical perspective, we've been consolidating sideways for literally close to 4 years. Inside this big giant engulfing candle here in January 2021, we've had almost 40 something candles, monthly candles, that are engulfed by this big giant candle over here. When you have inside candles in consolidation, what happens after that is usually a bullish continuation, or I guess I should say is usually as a continuation of the primary trend. What is the primary trend right now? Looking at this being a higher high here compared to over here, and looking over here, higher low here compared to over here. What is the primary trend when this inside candles get broken? The primary trend is, based on looking at this market structure, the primary trend is up. Anyway, I just wanted to share you my thoughts. I'm not trying to pump GME. I really don't care one way or another, but I just find this to be very, very technically interesting. It may or may not play out the way I put it to be, but I just like the bullish structure of this chart, and I just wanted to share with you. Anyway, take care, bye.